Watch the ride.
Hey everybody, hope you're all doing alright out there. So I've been asked to talk about the 20-mile-an-hour speed limits, Wales and all of that stuff. So if you're not aware, in Wales, in many places, I don't think it's everywhere yet, they've turned 30-mile-an-hour roads into 20-mile-an-hour roads. Now the reason the Welsh Government said they've done this, and I've read all their sort of blurb, is about safety, and safety. They're saying they can have 40% less collisions and fewer injuries and less people going to the NHS and blah 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 by putting these 20-mile-an-hour limits in. Now a lot of people are rightfully very mad about this, and they tend to be the people who work and go places. The people I've seen who are pro the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit are pedestrians, cyclists and people who don't work, it would seem. You know, I was watching some interviews the other day from some people around Wales, and they basically just chose people that didn't have a problem with it, and every single one of those was like, well, I don't actually drive, I just walk around, and yeah, it would be nice if cars were going slower. Well, of course it would be, because then when you're not paying attention crossing the road, you don't have to be so careful. Not that you are. And then you can see where I'm going to be going with my opinion on this. I don't believe that it's a good idea for Wales. I don't believe it's a good idea for anyone. We are living in a time with much more advanced cars, with better braking systems, with even automatic braking systems. You know, if people in cars paid a little bit more attention, because 30 miles an hour, let's face it, is not fast. And if pedestrians took their headphones out, looked before they crossed, you know, the classic things that we were all taught as kids, that you used to see on TV ads that kids don't seem to get these days, there would be absolutely no need for this speed limit change. Now, interestingly, I looked into some studies about the idea of changing a 30 into a 20, and do you know what the studies came out and said? It makes no discernible difference. It's not worth doing. I do understand the argument, you know, if you hit someone at 40, it's a lot worse than if you hit them at 20, but then as I've said, if you hit them at 10, it's even better than that, and if you don't get in your car in the first place, well then no one gets run over. So is that the end game? Because the idea of this all being in safety, as I say, it just seems farcical. On the island I live, there's a couple of roads that used to be 40s, they changed to 30s in the name of safety, and has there been any less accidents or any less severe accidents? No. Has there been more traffic? Yes. I don't think slower speeds help traffic, because people can't, you know, get out of the way and get up to speed. So, my opinion on the Welsh limit changes is, well, I don't live in Wales, so I don't know the exact situation, but from what I've seen from people, they're not particularly happy with it. From the evidence I've seen, it won't actually help, and all it does is make things worse for people. You know, I grew up in the 90s, we had faster speed limits, cars were worse brakes, you'd cycle everywhere, and there wasn't like there was a massive amount more like injuries as far as I could tell. But then again, people had common sense back then. You know, when I was like 6 years old, I was trusted to shoot a shotgun and drive a boat. And that does a lot for a kid. You know, to get trusted with responsibility, to show you can be responsible, means you get to do cooler things, and the parents don't have to worry about you because they know you're going to use your common sense as to whether something is a good idea or not. Well, that's certainly not very common anymore. And I do think that things like, you know, the crossing the road adverts you used to see on TV were beneficial to kids that they don't see anymore. I don't think the government like puts any hedgehogs crossing the road ads on to like YouTube or something. Having said that, they just skip it anyway. Well, people have asked me what's my opinion on if they tried to do this to the rest of the UK, and funnily enough, where I live, as I say, most of the roads are now 30s, and people have talked about turning them into 20s, like almost self-electedly. Now, of course, the people who are pro this are retired people who don't drive, people who just want to walk around. I just don't think these people remember what it was like to need to go to work, need to be somewhere, to not have, you know, an extra third of your day to put onto travelling time. There's also the fact that a lot of the older people around here, who again would be pro 20 miles an hour, don't drive at 30 or anywhere close to it because they can't. They're too terrified of their cars and they just drive around about 18 miles an hour just continuously. Now again, that gets into that big problem of, you know, older people need their independence, they need to be able to get to the shops, but at the same time they're putting people's lives at risk if they're really not that good at driving. If their reactions are that poor, it's only a matter of time before they do something that could end up getting someone hurt. And I do wonder how much of all these mitigating circumstances get taken into account in the figures. You know, was the driver particularly old that hit this person? Was the person wearing earphones at the time? Were they paying attention to how they were crossing the road? You know, all of this stuff will be chucked into the numbers. And it's like, well, maybe we could reduce the impacts and maybe we could reduce the crashes by improving the standard of people's driving and the drivers on the road. And also maybe if we taught people about how to cross a road and also held people accountable for if they did it. You know, if you are in a car, actually, let's go back a step here. You have the hierarchy system in the UK, right? So the most vulnerable user is the most protected. So your pedestrian's most vulnerable, then your cyclist, then your horse rider and motorcyclist. And then there's like cars and vans, and then it goes up to lorries and things like that. Because the bigger thing can squish the smaller thing. And obviously squidgy humans exposed are right at the bottom there. However, I've heard many times that if you hit a pedestrian, unless you've got like dash cam to prove they stepped down in the road, you're very likely going to catch a charge for it. Because, you know, you should have been watching out for them. I mean, you could have been going along normally and this person just jumps in the road in front of you. You need evidence to prove that you didn't just run into them as they were crossing the road. It becomes your word against theirs. You might need CCTV, you know. But my question is this: if someone walks out in front of a car, damages the car, do they then have to pay for the damages to the car? Are they then found responsible for basically crossing the road incorrectly, for being an idiot? Because if there was an idiot tax for people doing stupid things in the UK, I think we probably would be doing a lot better than we are now. So for all of those reasons, I don't agree with 20 mile an hour limits. I don't think it has any place in the UK at this time with vehicles that are held to higher standards than they used to be. We've got ABS and all that sort of stuff. If drivers are more attentive, they've got more tools that they use now than they used to not hit anyone. So yeah, I'm sorry, I don't agree with it. Then there's a side of it is, well, what are they actually doing this for then? If the science says it doesn't help, why are they doing it? One of the funny things on the Welsh Government's website is an FAQ page, and it says, isn't this just a cash grab? And their answer was, no, this is a driving safety initiative. Sorry, that sounds a lot like saying, is this a war? No, it's a special operation. So there you go, that's my thoughts on it. I don't agree with it. I think it's silly. I think people should be more accountable and more skilled. Simple as that. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button. If you are new here, please consider hitting the subscribe button. And if you'd like to help support this channel, please consider doing that through Patreon. Links in the description. Bye bye.